There was honestly a few times where I almost quit everything and I said, you know what, let me just go to a normal 9 to 5 job because it's going to be a lot easier.
If I had just sat there and, thought through all the possibilities and came up with a really elaborate marketing plan and tried to, dot all the I's and cross all the T's and just make sure that everything was perfect.
I use eBay as the tool or the business to maintain my content creation. And that's what kept me going as well for the 9 months straight without making any money.
It is a super important lesson. Don't take your profits too early. Learn to be patient, because this is something I see a lot of people run into when they're getting started.
It's almost the same thing that I tell them all the time because they want to compare their lives to other people, right? And I always let them know, like, I was fortunate enough and I was blessed enough to
Welcome back to another episode of the Couch Pod. Today, I'm joined by Jhonny. You may know him on Instagram, TikTok, or his YouTube, Hustle to Resell, where he dives deep primarily and at first into the world of flipping items on eBay for profit. But if you dig deeper, he has a greater message about how to discipline yourself, how to have the right mindset, and how to unlock opportunity for yourself and your family. Jhonny, thank you so much for coming onto the pod today.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. I mean, it's my first podcast. So I'm excited. I'm excited.
Oh, very cool. Well, at this point, I think I've done almost 100 of these. And I would say at the beginning, it's hard. You feel awkward. What do I say? But over time, you kind of get a flow for it. So I think you're going to be a natural at this. So
yeah, I think creating content, I've posted over 1,000 videos. I'm starting to get more comfortable with it. So if I was just starting out, I'd probably be terrible at it.
Yeah. And actually, that's a great segue, which is, how long have you been creating content and how did you decide to get started with the content creation?
Well, I've been creating content for a very long time, but I never really took it serious. And I don't think it was not taking it serious. I think it was just not having the patience to seek growth. And I would always quit. But I think it was in 2023, I decided to just start posting. I was like, I'm going to start posting content. I'm going to stay consistent. I'm not expecting no results. And I just posted. I posted for 9 months straight without posting 9 months straight, 2 to 3 videos a day on TikTok. It was hard, but once you get monetized, it took me 9 months to make $100 in a month. So that's when I got even more excited. I was like, okay, this is a thing that I could really put out there and I could really help people as well, the journey. And it was like a win-win. It was like a win-win.
That really is no joke. I mean, 2 to 3 videos a day where you're flipping, right? So you have other ways to make income and you're creating content and you're doing all the editing yourself, I assume, in this time frame because you're not making money on it. I mean, that kind of output is pretty prolific. Like, were there times throughout that process where you started to doubt yourself?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think everybody feels that way in some time where they almost feel like it's a waste of time because, they're doing it every single day. They do it for a couple of weeks and they're seeing no results. But yeah, for sure, there was plenty of times, even with my eBay business, there was many times where I felt like it was a waste of time, where there was honestly a few times where I almost quit everything. And I said, you know what, let me just go to a normal 9 to 5 job, because it's going to be a lot easier. But I think that's just something everybody deals with,
Absolutely. And, it is easier, right? Working a 9 to 5 is easier, but are you going to achieve the quality of life that you want? Are you going to have the same freedom and upside that you will if you're an entrepreneur doing things for yourself? And I think that's the decision people need to make.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I tell everybody. It's like, either way, it's going to be hard. So choose your hard. Like, which one do you want?
Do you think, so you had significant experience flipping items on eBay already before you got into the content creation. Do you think that helped develop your perspective? Because you're very specific, like, I'm going to do this for 9 months, and you gave yourself that time frame. So how did you, decide on that?
Honestly, I think it was just, at that time, I think it was just the drive I had, just because. So I had 2 other jobs that year. It was 2023. I had 2 other jobs and I was doing eBay on the side. But before that, I was doing eBay full time. It completely failed. And then I had to get 2 other jobs. I was working at Amazon and I was working with my brother doing like auto work, repair stuff. And then I was doing eBay like very, very part-time, probably like maybe 15 hours a month. And at that time when I started creating the content, I set up those goals because I was just tired of, working too much and not seeing the progress. And then that same year, I lost both of those, secured paychecks. So I was like, well, I got to go back all in on what I know, which was eBay. And yeah, it took a while. It took about like 3 months for me to build up my eBay store to the point where I can, take care of my bills and take care of my family. And ever since that, I was like, man, I can do this. If I'm able to do this, I can do the content creation. Like, I already committed to this. I can commit. And I can't remember whose video I was watching on YouTube, maybe like a year or two ago. And it was a younger guy though. And I remember specifically him saying, if I'm already doing it, why not just pick up the camera and start recording? And that got me thinking a lot. I'm like, man, I'm already going to thrift stores. I'm already going to yard sales. Why not just start recording everything that I do? And ever since then, I realized that Gary Vee says that a lot. Everything is content, right? So everything was content. I was like, oh, I picked this up. Okay, let me record this real quick. Okay, bought it for this much. So for this much, that's it. End of video. But yeah, I think it was just like getting to realize that like everything is content and you can literally just pick up the camera and make a couple edits and you can make it as easy as possible and commit to it. And then you get the results.
Hey, flippers, are you still managing your reselling business the old-fashioned way? In today's fast-paced market, leveraging technology isn't just an advantage, it's a game changer. That's why we created Ivy Flip, the ultimate app designed to supercharge your reselling business. With Ivy Flip, you can effortlessly source products from Facebook, OfferUp, and Craigslist, all from one easy-to-use platform. Say goodbye to missed opportunities and hello to instant notifications when great deals are posted. Our cross-posting feature lets you list your items on multiple marketplaces with a single click, maximizing your exposure and sales potential. Plus, our AI-powered scam detection ensures you spend your time on genuine listings, not fake ones. Don't let outdated methods hold you back. Embrace the power of technology with Ivy Flip and put your reselling business ahead of the competition. Click the link in the description and get a 1-week free trial of our app now.
Oh, that's a really good point. Like the way I am, I don't really like being in front of camera. And like if you look at my personal social, I'm not posting a ton on there, just limited to close friends. So when we started creating content for Ivy Flip, it was difficult for me. Like I wasn't a flipper myself. Our audience is flippers. And I wasn't sure what I could offer that would be valuable to them. And, I think in that moment, like when this was even a year and a half, 2 years ago, if I had just sat there and thought through all the possibilities and came up with a really elaborate marketing plan and tried to, dot all the I's and cross all the T's and just make sure that everything was perfect, we would have never gotten started. But, for my entrepreneurial background, my fifth company, I knew that sometimes you don't have the answers when you're beginning something. And in the absence of information, in the absence of strategy, in the absence of motivation to do something, sometimes the best thing to do is just get rolling. And that's exactly what we did, right? Like similar to you, similar but different. I just started recording conversations that I was having with people because I was talking to flippers every day, like 4, 5, 6 flippers every single day. And I just started, turning on screen recording while we're on these like little video chats. And then we would find little pockets of the conversation, which I was like, actually, this is interesting. Like if I'm having this conversation with one person and it's helpful to them, if we broadcast that out to the world, maybe this could help more people. And that really was the genesis of our podcast. Now, I think the thing that's challenging about the way that we got into this, and as we think about how to diversify and increase our reach, is okay, now we're rolling and now we have a system, and that system is pretty good. Could be better. But what is the inflection point at which you make a decision? Like, what is the inflection point at which you change the decisions that you're making and pivot and try something new? And I'm sure you've come across that in your journey. Like you were doing content 2-3 videos a day for 9 months. There's a lot that you learned in that period of time. And since then, and how have you reflected on, your creative process and made changes to improve your content and your reach?
So when I started, I was in that journey of creating content. I was like, you know what? It'll get more views if I professionally edit my videos, because I've been editing videos for a very long time. Like I remember, like we have videos of me and my brother when we were kids, 8, 10 years old with the, big camera, just recording videos. So we used to do like Sony Vegas. I don't know if you remember that software, Adobe Effects. We used to use that, when we were kids. So I already have the skills to edit videos. And there was a point where I went like a whole week. I was editing videos professionally, adding these effects, the sound and everything. And they were getting the same views as my videos that I would just pick up the phone and record. And after that, I was like, man, like this isn't really, like, it's not benefiting me. I'm taking like 40 minutes to edit a video and then post it, getting the same amount of views. I came across somebody on TikTok, records content completely completely different. It's not even reselling. He does copywriting, and he was getting a bunch of views, and he was just picking up the phone and recording. And I was like, I want to be that guy. I want to do exactly what he's doing. Just pick up the phone, record straight from TikTok, edit it on TikTok, and post it within 10 minutes. So I did try to go like the professional edits and stuff like that. But then I realized that we're all human beings, and human beings connect with human beings. And if they see all these crazy edits, they don't really connect as much with people that just look like normal person, I should say. So then I just started doing that. I just normal videos, recording, no crazy edits, no just simple cuts here and there, and then just posting that. Honestly, that's what got me to where I am. But also going live and going live for about an hour, making $0, zero money, is just giving information, helping people out. And I think that's what helped me reach my audience right now. Because on TikTok, like I said, it took me 9 months to get to 10,000 followers. On Instagram, it took me like a month to get to 30,000 followers. So my audience on TikTok is more connected to me than my audience on Instagram. But yeah, I think the content it was just, I haven't really made too many changes. It's just been keeping it simple.
No, it's really interesting. I think the format's a little bit different too, right? Like on TikTok, it really did innovate this, like a different style of video. And it also gave people who aren't celebrities a fairer chance at distribution through the algorithm. And when I go to TikTok, it's like, a lot less content that is highly edited and aesthetic. It's a lot more real people, real conversations. And Instagram, obviously you do see like brands and celebrities and more curated aesthetic type of posts. But I can understand what you're saying, particularly with TikTok.
Yeah, for sure. TikTok is just, more, I guess people connect more to it because they seem like normal people instead of, like you said, celebrities.
Now, one thing that I did notice is it seemed like you had more a direct focus on eBay and the ins and outs of being successful on eBay. But recently, the content has seemed to take a little bit of a broader focus. Maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah, so my main goal with eBay from the beginning was to leave my 9-to-5 job. I hated my 9-to-5 job and I was miserable. So my main goal was like, hey, I see eBay as an opportunity to leave that job. And, that's exactly what it was. So I got to the point where my eBay business, like I said, it's paying the bills. It's taking care of my family. It's doing well. So I use eBay as the tool or the business to maintain my content creation. And that's what kept me going as well for the 9 months straight without making any money. Because I still had my eBay business to, cover the bills for those 9 months. Then when I got to that point, when I started making money from content creation, that's when I started focusing more because I was like, man, this can be something serious and I can really dive in, still maintain my eBay store because it is doable and, have those two sources of income. And now that, content is where it's at with the income and then eBay still with the income. Now I'm, jumping into other stuff as well because now I have two incomes to, help me sustain that new business that I, want to get going.
Absolutely. Makes sense. So eBay was your wedge. It was your way of getting out of the 9-to-5, getting into content creation. And now that you have stability from eBay and some stability coming from the content creation, it gives you more freedom and flexibility to explore and imagine what else is out there on the horizon for me, what could be useful to my audience.
Yeah, exactly. And I do hold back a lot. I was just going to say, like, if I would want my audience or your audience as well to just take something from that, would be to just be patient. Like there's many things that I want to buy for myself, but I know that right now it's not the perfect timing. I think that you just have to build whatever it is that that you're doing, build it to where you're going to be okay with it and going to be comfortable with it. And then you can start, buying. Cause people ask me all the time, I was like, hey man, how many black shirts do you own? I was like, way too many. Like why buy one shirt for 30 when I can buy a 3-pack for $15? It doesn't make sense. But yeah, I would just say like, be patient. Like just because you make some extra money, don't go and spend it. Just save it, build or reinvest it back into your business, grow that business, and then eventually you'll buy whatever it is that you want.
Absolutely. Super important lesson there. Don't take profits too early, And by the way, where do you get your black shirts? Is it Uniqlo, your Costco guy? Like
Target. Target 3-pack from Target.
Keeping it simple. I respect that. And I think I had a very similar attitude towards fashion. Although now that I'm a little bit older, I'm like, really what it was is I moved to New York at the end of 2021. I was there for like 2 years. And up until that point, I was literally black shirt every single day. And then I got to New York and I was like walking around. I'm like, I should like invest in my fashion a little bit more. People are so, dressed to the nines there. I felt a little out of place and it paid to blend in a little bit, but that's a whole other conversation.
You just got to get there, right?
Yeah. And I think just bringing it back full circle, circle, it is a super important lesson. Don't take your profits too early. Learn to be patient, because this is something I see a lot of people run into when they're getting started in an entrepreneurial venture. Is they're grinding, they're grinding, they're grinding. They're facing a lot of adversity. All of a sudden, they have a little bit of a breakthrough, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's working!" Right? And in that moment, they pull back. They get comfortable. They're like, "I made it now." And in reality, there are ups and downs. There are going to continue to be ups and downs. And the only way you'll ever get ahead is if when you're having success, you push harder. And this is a super common mistake I see people make. They have some success and they're like, okay, I made it, and they get comfortable. And then the cycle repeats itself. If you ever want to have a chance at getting ahead and really creating freedom for yourself, those are the moments where you have to sit down and focus even harder.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really open about everything on anything that's to me and my business, I'm open about it. And that's exactly what I tell people all the time. Getting comfortable is one of the worst things. Like, well, exactly what you just said right now about how when I first, had my eBay business, it was good for a whole year. Then I got comfortable because I thought, I'm not working a 9-to-5 job. I'm my own boss. I can do whatever it is that you want, or whatever it is that I want. And that's when it failed. That's when it failed, because and that's why I speak on these things, because I know these things from my past way too many times. And I just want to let people know, hey, just because you've made, like you said, had a little breakthrough where you made some money, that doesn't mean you've made it. Like, and not to sound not to be like in a negative way, but like you still got a long way to go. Like, people see me as like, oh, I want to have a eBay business as successful as yours. And I let them know, like, you might see it as a success, but there's people making way more than what I do, and I'm not done yet. I'm still going. Like, I haven't felt like a win.
Absolutely. And, maybe a more generic lesson here, not generic, maybe a more first principles lesson here is that when it comes to business and the economy in general, if you're not growing, you're dying. So if your business is on the decline, you're dying. If your business is staying the same, you're also dying. The only way you're not dying is if you're growing. And, think about the economy. Every dollar that you keep in the bank over time loses value, right? And that's because the value of there's inflation. And that's why people put dollars into brokerage accounts or, 401ks, because they want the value of their dollar to keep pace with the economy. So if you're simply staying the same, the world is going to move around you, and eventually what you have becomes inadequate. You have to continue to push.
Yeah, well said.
So speaking of the economy, now we're in 2025. The world has changed quite a bit since you've started flipping items, quitting your 9-to-5 and getting into content creation. And what I see, and a big impetus behind what we do at Ivy Flip, is the idea that the American dream is not dead. It's just different. So when my dad's a refugee, my parents are both immigrants. They came to the United States in the 1980s. My dad escaped a genocide, right? And when he came to the US, you could go to college, graduate, you put yourself through college on a minimum wage job, and then go work for someone for 40 years, buy a plot of land or a house, and then that house is going to explode in value 10 times over the next, 4 decades. And that was the American dream. You could come to America, put in an honest day's work, you could support yourself, you could lead a good life. And over the years, that kind of opportunity doesn't really seem to exist anymore, right? There are double income households, people working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and they're still struggling living paycheck to paycheck. And I think, hearing from entrepreneurs like you, people that are documenting the process, creating content, trying to educate people, gives people who feel stuck hope that there is another way out. And I'm wondering, since you feel really connected to your audience on TikTok, I'm wondering, do you hear stories like that from people? And what is the feeling of opportunity in America related to working a 9-to-5 versus entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I posted a video about that yesterday. I get that a lot, especially from men, because most of my majority of my following are men. I think it's 70% mostly just men. I do get a lot of messages like that. And I always tell them, it's almost the same thing that I tell them all the time, because they want to compare their lives to other people, right? And I always let them know, I was fortunate enough and I was blessed enough to be able to work hard and buy my house in 2017. That was when the house market was still pretty well. If I were to buy a house, let's say last year, and I have way higher payments than what I do now, it would definitely be a lot harder for me to be able to do what I do. So I always let them know, yeah, it is harder now, but it's not impossible. And I know it all comes down to just showing up and doing the work. I feel like a lot of people, especially when they message me, and I tell them, I'm not one person to sugarcoat things, but I don't want to be mean either. But I let them know, hey, if you're struggling or you're feeling lost, it's no one's fault but yours. You have to get get up and do something, at least go for a walk, clear your mind and then start there. But I feel like with the American dream, like you said, it's still there, it still exists, but it's definitely a lot different now. And now it's like, you can go to college, but you'd have to be a doctor, you'd have to be a lawyer, you have to, don't get a degree that's gonna not benefit you in the long run. Then you have a bunch of debt and then you can't get a job. But you can definitely do, especially with content. Like, I haven't really dived into that much, but I do plan on creating videos on content and helping people with their content, because if you can create content and build your personal brand, like, the possibilities for whatever it is that you want to do are endless. Like, there's just so much opportunity out there. It's just a matter of going out there and doing something to be able to find those opportunities. Because, you've heard it plenty of times. Opportunity isn't just going to come and knock on your door and say, hey, I'm right here, let's go do it. So you gotta put yourself, the more you put out, the more you put yourself out there, the more, opportunities present themselves. And that's where you got to be like, hey, this doesn't benefit me, this one doesn't either, but this one might. Let me give this one a try. And you won't know until you give it a try.
Yeah, and the economy is changing so much, right? So it could be that you went to school, you had a plan, you got a decent degree, but the job markets have changed and that degree is just not as valuable as it used to be. And, we're seeing this in industries are probably even surprising, like software engineers are having the hardest time, especially recent graduates, getting employment in this economy. Tech companies simply are not hiring. This is in large part due to AI. So, turns out that a lot of these tech companies are overstaffed in a way, right? And like, instead of hiring new engineers to meet their technical needs, they're just leveraging AI, giving their existing workforce better tools to be more efficient and produce more. And, it's no one's fault. Like, to reframe, you were saying like, it's your responsibility. It might not be your fault. It is your responsibility, right? Like, you can't nothing that we did made the economy what it is, made, life in America what it is. But you can't point your finger at that and say, well, it's not my fault, so I'm not going to do anything about it. That's a defeatist attitude. And so the only person who is responsible for you and your life and the outcomes you achieve is yourself. And so it's not useful to be pointing fingers except at yourself, because that's the only thing you can control: who you are, what you do, how you feel, how you act. And I think that's a really powerful message to get across.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because taking accountability. So maybe it's just me. Maybe I just am a little bit too hard on myself, but I take accountability for everything, regardless whether it's my fault or, let's say, maybe this is too, dramatic, but let's say I'm driving and I get in a car accident and somebody hits me. It'll be my fault. Even though if it was the other person's fault, I'll be like, man, that's my fault. I shouldn't have taken too long, getting ready. Or maybe I should have, went this way instead. But I would take accountability for every little thing that happens in my life, because I know that, like you said, if I can take responsibility, I can take control of it and I can make a change.
Absolutely. Well, you heard it here first, guys. Opportunity in America is not dead. It is different, but it requires that you take responsibility for yourself and the trajectory of your life. And as a quick side note, if you are in search of opportunity and you're willing to work hard, Ivy Flip has something for you. We are looking for people who need access to inventory to flip. We give them the business model. We give them the community, the strategy that they need. We have over 50 flippers in this private community. If you want to learn, if you're looking for opportunity, come check out what we have to offer in Ivy Industry. So just a quick plug there. So let's dig into what's coming next on the horizon for you. So you've been building the eBay business and the content creation for quite some time now. Where are you at with things? And if you don't mind, maybe sharing financially what the picture is like.
Yeah, like as in financially, like the numbers on my eBay store and stuff like that. Yeah, so on my eBay store right now, it's averaging between like $3,500 to $4,000 a month in profit. And that number used to be higher, but ever since I started maintaining content, I was like, well, I don't have to focus too much on eBay because I'm making the money from content. So that's where that number stays at for right now. I do have plans on building that business, because right now I have about 434 active items listed on my eBay store. I want to double that amount, and I plan on hiring somebody part-time to be able to do, the photo, the listing, the packing and all that stuff. But that, that comes in the future. And with content creation, it's just super weird. Sometimes I have good months, sometimes I have bad months. For example, on TikTok, the way they pay me is per views. So last month, it was my best month yet. It was about $4,500 for the month. I can't remember exactly how many views were qualified for that. And then this month seems like it's going to hit about $1,000. So it's just so weird with TikTok. So I don't really rely on it too much. I always just see it as like extra money come in.
Right. So you have your base from eBay and then some additional, wins that can flow on the side from your content.
Exactly, yeah. And then, like I said, since those are, they're maintained and they're doing the, its thing, I recently started getting into reselling on Whatnot. And I joined the platform when it first came out, like a few months after it first came out, got into it, and I completely lost, I lost interest completely. I don't know why. I can't remember why I lost interest in it. And then recently, about 2-3 weeks ago, I was at the Goodwill bins and I was like, you know what? Let me go live at the bins while I find these items. And the shows have been doing really well. And it's doing the rotations at the bins. I would drive home and then I would drive back. But now, instead of wasting time, wasting gas, I just go live at the bins, make that extra money. It just averages, depends on what I find. It averages between like $25 to $90 in that rotation. Then I wait for the next rotation. I grab the items that I'm going to flip on eBay, and then I do another show there. So it's like making money while I'm sourcing. Yeah, while I'm sourcing for the items to flip on eBay. So I've been focusing a lot on Whatnot.
Yeah, two birds, one stone. In fact, it might be like 3 birds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's been fun, honestly. So I'm like, you know what? I can maintain this. It'll be fun. It's not like really time taken out of my day because, like I said, it was time wasted just driving back and forth. And then focusing a lot on YouTube. On YouTube, once I get monetized over there, I think, that's going to be another side income that comes in. And then on YouTube is a lot different though. On YouTube, I treat it more of like a diary in a way. I show, what I'm doing throughout my day, whether it's the eBay business, the Whatnot show content, and just in general in life. Because I started already in marketing because it's something I've always fallen in love with, which is marketing. And I think that's where my content creation comes from as well, because I'm marketing myself, my business, everything. So helping local businesses just set up systems for their business, to automate them and make them better. So that's something I recently started as well. And, through YouTube, people are going to start seeing that grow as well.
Yeah. So do you feel like people sometimes pigeonhole you as the eBay guy when really you're like the hustle guy, right? Like it's anything and everything that you can do to make money and establish freedom for yourself. eBay was just kind of like one thread among many. And now you're getting into the marketing and, creating the content. You want to teach people how to make that content too, which is really interesting.
Yeah. That's one thing that that's why TikTok is like, everybody knows me for the eBay guy. But when I started posting on Instagram and on YouTube, I was like, I'm not going to be that eBay guy. Over here, they're going to know me as the eBay guy / this guy / this guy / this guy. That's why I started posting different kinds of content on different platforms, which makes everything a lot harder. But, you're able to kind of expand the brand, I guess.
I think this is actually such an interesting area of discussion. So I just had a furniture flipper / content creator on the podcast, Mariah Howard. Shout out Mariah. Her episode just came out on the pod. Like amazing energy. And I love like the attitude she has about, her hustle and the ways that she's trying to make money. And we talked about something which is pretty interesting. Like when Ivy Flip first got into the couch flipping world, we actually started with furniture flipping and we assessed both markets. Do we want to start with couch flippers? Do we want to start with like furniture flippers or some other niche of flipping? We ultimately decided on the couch flippers, but that was our wedge, right? Just like eBay was your wedge. It was our way to get in and start making money. And as we looked at the furniture flipping market, what I realized is there are way more people that are flipping furniture, way more influencers in particular that are flipping furniture. And couch flipping is very niche, maybe a couple thousand or a couple hundred people we thought were actively flipping couches in the United States. And there are basically no couch flipping influencers, right? Like the largest following anyone had was like maybe like 40, 50,000 followers on Instagram or something like that. Whereas there were furniture flipping content creators with like millions of followers. And what we discovered is like your average couch flipper actually makes way more money and they're much more focused on the operation of the business, just like buying couches for cheap and selling couches for more and, making money on the flips. Whereas a lot of the furniture flippers just enjoyed the process. They just liked flipping furniture. They liked the process, like getting, scavenging for items, restoring it, painting it, it was a form of creative expression. And if they could make a little bit of money doing that, that was good for them. But as a result, it was harder to get consistent profit flipping furniture. And therefore, that's why we didn't start there, right? Because the people who are flipping furniture tend to make less money. And so we wanted to focus on, software tools for couch flippers, and they're making a lot more money. But the reason I bring this up, bring it full circle, is a lot of the furniture flippers start out just flipping furniture, and then a lot of them segue into the content creation as well, which I think is super interesting. So the first point is that when they're listing their furniture on Facebook Marketplace, they're just getting hit by low ballers. resellers, people who don't understand the time and energy that they put into those products to try and make it more valuable. And by creating content, it was able to educate their audience about the value of what they're doing more. That's the first point. The second point is that maybe they're making an extra $2-3 grand a month flipping furniture. They're actually making way more money just by creating content. And Mariah said the same thing that you did, which is like, I'm already doing it. Why not turn it into content? Everything is content. The final point about that is, I think there's a change coming to like the economy and the job markets. And this is precipitated by AI. Like it or not, it's here, and it's fundamentally going to change the relation of labor and capital in our society. And a lot of the robotic thing, like a lot of the jobs that can be automated away will be automated away. And that can be good or bad. If you're a truck driver and your job gets automated away, that's bad. But while jobs get destroyed, more jobs will get created, more opportunities will be created. And if in society, we don't have to spend our time doing like the menial labor or the repetitive tasks, that frees up our time to enjoy life, consume, and also create. And it's content creation that kind of opens up as a space, as a segment of the new economy that will persist even as AI grows. Because, those are the things that AI are not going to be very good at, right? The connecting to other people, creating content, things of that nature. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that.
No, yeah, exactly what you just said. AI, I mean, maybe it will one day. I don't know how long it'll take, but how long is it going to take for AI to replace your personality and who you are? Like everybody's different, So exactly what you said, the content is the new, like everybody wants to be a content creator. They see the big, the Jake Pauls, the KSI, they see the big people, Mr. B. So they see, I want to be a content creator too. And like I said earlier, like being a content creator just opens up, like if I wasn't a content creator, you never would have sent me a message. You never would have been like, oh man, this guy, he's reselling, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for content creation. But like, yeah, content creation, I think it's one of the things that if you are already doing something, it doesn't matter what it is, just pick up the camera and start recording. That's as simple as it is. And, for your audience that listens, if you guys want to grow your account fast, I would highly recommend that you guys get the Ray-Ban Metas. Just record POV style videos, and I can guarantee you that once you start monetizing your content, the glasses will pay for themselves by a million. By a million. So that's a huge tip for you guys. Like just get the Metas, start recording content, and you'll see like you'll thank yourself for thanks.
Yeah, it's like you'd be surprised at what people are interested in. I've spent too much time on TikTok watching videos of guys making like baked potatoes with cheese on them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
People making Subway sandwiches or people making pizza, it's like, it really is anything in 2025 and beyond. The Ray-Ban Meta point is really interesting. So like, why do you think the POV style of video is unique compared to like whipping out your cell phone, for example?
I think with the Metas, you're hands-free, right? It's almost like it's funny, I've never said this, but this is exactly what I'm going to talk about in a future YouTube video, because a lot of people have been asking me about them. But the reason I truly believe the Metas do really well with content is because it's almost like a VR. You're hands-free, you're recording whatever it is that you're doing, and people are watching that video. And if they're at work, and let's say if I post a yard sale video, if they're at work, they see my yard sale video, they're going to be like, man, I can't wait for Saturday. But until then, let me enjoy this piece of content, and it makes me feel like I'm there. Because like I said, there's no face, there's no nothing. It just hands, and they can kind of feel like it's them in the video. And I think that is why those videos perform really well.
Interesting. So it allows them to assume your point of view. That's one benefit. But also, as you're interacting with the world around you, if I'm talking to you and I have my phone out like this, it changes our interaction, right? Like you feel like now you feel you're being observed. And I think with the Ray-Ban Metas, like a lot of people don't know what those are yet, right? So you could have them on your face. They have no idea that they're being recorded.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's like a little LED light that turns on, but if you're recording in the sun, it's not really noticeable. It's not really noticeable. But yeah, I would highly recommend them. I recently posted a video on TikTok with the Ray-Ban Metas, and it was a yard sale video. And that was my highest paid video. It was just a big yard sale. And just for, like I said earlier, for something that I was already doing, I was still going to go to that yard sale regardless if I recorded or not. I would recommend the metas are a good investment if you're trying to be a content creator. I could really see it like you said, the people that clean the couches and they paint them and they make them better. If they record that POV style videos, they would do numbers on TikTok. And, the views is what gets us paid on TikTok.
So, I mean, for anyone listening out there, I mean, it sounds like you're telling whatever you're doing, you should maybe take a stab at creating content. And it has longevity in this game.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it is. Whatever it is that you're doing, even if you're working a 9 to 5 job, just record yourself, doing some office work or making a coffee, whatever it is that you're doing, just post a piece of content.
You ever see this Instagram account? I think it's called Hub's Life.
Yeah.
No, that guy he did something really cool, which was like an environment where everyone's being very ostentatious and they're, showing their vacations and their fancy cars and the lifestyle. He's creating content, which is just like, all right, this is my office job, right? I'm making a cup of coffee, making lunch. And, that guy has over 1 million followers on Instagram. I think I saw recently that he's quit his 9 to 5 job. He sold out on us. I'm just kidding. But
yeah. I see a lot of people upset on that one. The first time I saw one of his videos, I was like, man, I like this guy. I like this guy because, like you just said, it was just different. It was different, and it was such a interesting way to create the content.
So I think one of the main challenges people are going to have in creating content and reaching an audience is finding their voice, finding the things that they want to talk about, how they're going to talk about it, and in a way that's going to resonate with people. And this is something that you must know firsthand, right? Connecting with your audience, creating over 1,000 videos over the past few years. What advice would you have to someone out there listening that is interested in getting started? And, like if you could give advice to yourself 2-3 years ago and you're speaking to yourself, like what would you say?
It's super simple, honestly. I would just say post everything. I was just talking to my son actually yesterday because I was letting him know about the podcast today. We were talking about how Hustle to Resell started. I was like, I changed my name so many times in the beginning. I didn't know what I wanted to do or what kind of content I wanted to post. It used to be called JG Thrift Finds. So my initials and Thrift Finds. And I was just posting anything and everything that I would find to flip. But in the beginning, it's like, it's definitely hard. But if you just post everything, you kind of start going, working backwards and getting rid of the videos that you don't like. Get rid of what you don't like and start focusing on what you do like. Then when you do that, you start focusing on what's working. And then you kind of have to work with that. And then Gary Vee always says, it's not, how does he say it? He says, when you're posting content, it's not just this, it's like this and this and this. So just post everything. Like all my content on Instagram, it's been reselling, talking about just like, discipline, mindset. And then I posted a singing video because I let them know like, hey, I wanted to be a singer when I was 18. I want to be an artist. And I posted that video and it got so many views. And don't get me wrong, at first I was so nervous. I was like, man, I don't know if it's going to connect with my audience. And it got the most comments out of probably like any of my recent videos. But it's just posting anything. Like at the end of the day, it's your channel. Like not everybody has to connect. And which brings me to the point that you shouldn't get so attached to the views that you get on your videos. Everything has a purpose. If you go to my TikTok account, you'll see like my motivational videos, the discipline videos. They don't do as good as my yard sale videos. But I know I utilize yard sale videos to attract a new audience, and I use those, personal videos to maintain my current audience. So do not get attached to those numbers, because I feel like if you do get attached to those numbers, I know that if you get attached to those numbers, because it's happened to me so many times, that you start losing interest in creating content.
So it sounds like you've created a bunch of videos, and there are videos that you thought would do really well in terms of views that totally shit the bed. And then there are videos that you just kind of threw out there and you're like, oh, wow, like this did really well. And it's hard to predict that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And like I said, that's why in the beginning, especially in the beginning, you have to just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And once you see like, oh, these 3 things are sticking, let me, dive in a little bit more into this stuff. And then if you can make it enjoyable, and like I said, don't focus too much on the numbers, and make it some kind of enjoyable for you, it makes the process just so much easier, because it's hard. Why not make it a little bit easy for you?
Interesting. So when you talk about making the content enjoyable, it's not just from the standpoint of your audience. Of course, it should be catchy and interesting. You got to catch people's attention, but making it easy and enjoyable for yourself is going to go a long way.
100%. Like I said, it's already, even staying consistent for 2 weeks. It's really hard. It doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it's very hard staying consistent for 2 weeks. And if you can make it easy and fun for you, it's going to be easy. I don't want to say easy. It's going to be simple. There you go. I like that word better.
It's a great point. Like, I mean, go to the gym, New Year's time, right? Full of New Year's resolutioners. And then by the end of January, it's pretty much back to the normal traffic. So 2 weeks sounds like a little bit of time, but in practice, it's quite a bit of time to be consistent and dedicated to something.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
What's an example of things that you've done to make the content creation process more enjoyable and fit your lifestyle more?
That is a good question. Wow, that gets me thinking. That's a good question. To make it enjoyable, like I said, it was just keeping it super simple. Like I said, I don't mind doing the editing. I don't mind doing even my YouTube videos. There's just cuts, nothing crazy editing, because that just makes it simple for me. It won't attract an audience faster, or it won't keep them engaged as long, but you have to work with what you got right now. Like if I started going crazy and doing crazy edits like Mr. Beast does in the beginning, I'm only going to do one video a year, So if you can just keep it simple and create 4 videos or even 8 videos a month, then that's going to bring more results than making 1 video a year. So I think for me, it was just keeping it simple. The more simple I can keep it, the better for me, the more enjoyable, and the more I'm able to produce.
Absolutely. So look, it would be great if we had unlimited budgets and unlimited time to invest into content creation. That's not the reality for most people. And if you're going to, rather than wait to get to the point where you feel like everything is perfect and edited and then putting it out, just figuring out a way to integrate it into your daily life and make it part of your ritual, make it part of your habits, is going to be much more impactful for someone trying to get off the ground. Look, I've been an entrepreneur for a while, and I've spoken to many entrepreneurs along the way. It's, I think I tend to resonate and gravitate a lot with people who are entrepreneurial, but you also see a lot of wantrepreneurs, people who have big ideas, but ultimately fail to execute. And a really good example of this is like, they have a 9-to-5 job, but in their Instagram profile, they have their side hustle. And then you go look at their side hustle profile, and there's like 2 weeks of content on there from like 3 years ago. And then, they started and they gave up, right? And I get it. It's not easy to do. So I don't fault them for that. There's a reason why that happens.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that very well, because that used to be me. When I first started about 10 years ago, that used to be me.
It's a really powerful message, I think, because, in life, especially when you're younger, you have all these dreams about who you're going to be, what you're going to do, the lifestyle you're going to live, things that you're going to achieve. And life has a way of beating you down. So like you try things, you fail, like me personally with like my fitness, right? Like I've always wanted to be super fit and like super low body fat. And it hasn't really happened for me. I was always more of a geek and more introverted, not super athletic. And actually now at 33, I am more fit than I've ever been in my life. Still not like 6-pack abs or shredded or anything like that, but very content with like my body and my fitness regime. But it's very easy to get down on yourself, right? Like you start a diet and you like at first you're super motivated and I'm going to achieve my fitness goals. And then like 2 months later, it's like, where did those goals go? Right. And every time you start and fail, it can shake your confidence, because now the next time you try again, your perspective is weighted by that failure. And so success begets confidence, and confidence begets success. It's a positive flywheel moving you in that direction, but it can work in the opposite way too with failures. And I think this is probably a lesson that anyone and everyone listening to the podcast can resonate with, is that even if you have failed in the past, it doesn't mean that you're going to fail again in the future. Those failures are only failures. Like there's like a quote, it's like, on the road to success are only failures, right? You don't get successful without failing along the way. You have to fail and learn from those failures in order to eventually be successful. I'm curious, like, what do you think made that click for you?
It's gonna sound like weird. Well, not weird, but silly, I should say. No, he's just a rapper, NF. He has a song. He came out with a song when I was like 29. New song that came out is called Hope. And at the beginning, he talks about how he's about to be 30 years old and he has to kill the old version of himself to create this new person that will accomplish all the goals he ever wanted, because he gave the opportunity to the old him, but he never, did anything. So it sounds a little dramatic, but that song, when I heard that song, it stuck in my head for such a long time. And I was trying so many things. In my 20s, I tried everything and I failed everything. But I didn't fail because I didn't know how to do the things. I failed because I didn't have the right mindset, and I didn't have the discipline, and I didn't have anything that was required to be able to achieve anything. So when that song came out, I listened to it. it like a lot. And it really opened up my mind. Like, I was like, man, I'm 30 years old now. It's either now or never. And that's what clicked. Honestly, that's what clicked with me. That's what clicked with me. In 1 year, I was able to achieve way more than what I did in my 20s. And like I said, it maybe sounds like dramatic or whatever, but I think you just have to go through so many failures to be able to realize that, you have to go through those failures to be able to get to where you want to be, to the point where you get tired of yourself and you got to quit lying to yourself and you just got to do the work,
Yeah, I don't think that's dramatic at all, by the way. I think that's like spot on. In your 20s, it's all fun and games. Like, it's like, oh, you're 25 years old. Yeah, he's in the house, he's smoking weed, he doesn't take himself seriously. That's fine. He's 20, he's young, right? He's got time, he's going to learn. You get into your 30s, you're still on the couch, you're smoking weed. Like, people don't look at you the same way, right? And in the time that like you've been sitting on the couch, your peers have been hustling and working and getting ahead. And, it's hard to see the difference between like the lifestyle and discipline of different people at 20 years old when they're in college, but it becomes very apparent 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out, because, there are people that are still in their hometown, like, living at their parents' house, and, people that have established a foundation for themselves and they're out exploring the world. They've created a lifestyle, they've created a life for themselves that's truly worth living. And it takes that aha moment to get fed up with yourself and say, enough is enough, right? I'm going to go accomplish what I need to in my life, or life is going to pass me by.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said earlier, like maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just too hard on myself. My wife says I'm too hard on myself, but like the life gurus that say, which, you should love yourself and all that stuff. But, you also have to push yourself. Like, you have to be tough on yourself. Like, nobody's going to come and tell you like, hey, you got to go do this. You got to go do it yourself. You got to give yourself that tough love. And I've learned so much from that, I'm sure you know Andy Frisella. Yeah. So I've listened to every single one of his podcasts, and every single time, like every time he says something, I was like, man, that's me. I'm the guy he talks about. I'm the guy he makes fun of. I got to make the change because he's still one of my, top, like, I guess you could say like mentor. And if I ever meet him one day, I don't want him to be like, I want to get his attention. I don't want to, I don't want him to think like, man, like, why would I talk to that guy? He's, he's a loser. But yeah, I think a lot of those things, like, I got to be tough on myself, and anybody that wants to do anything should be tough on themselves, not to the point where like you're beating yourself down every single day, but like to the point where you're pushing yourself as much as you can to be able to feel like you won the day when you're laying in bed.
I think people could listen to this conversation and be like, these guys are assholes, like they don't have empathy, blah, blah. And I think I understand this about you after this brief conversation. You are very hard on yourself. You are very, it's hard, like, and I can feel that because I am the same way. And it's a fine line between being hard on yourself and like being hard on yourself in a good way and being hard on yourself in a bad way. So there's being hard on yourself in a good way, which is like, you don't accept mediocrity. You don't give up on your dreams and you push yourself to be better. Being hard on yourself in the bad way, which is like negative self-talk. You make a mistake. Oh, you fucking idiot. What? Like, you can't do anything right. And as someone who's hard on myself, I know this is something that I've gone through personally, is just moderating that self-talk and being able to, like if I was talking to a friend about their life and something they're doing, I would never speak to them in the way that I speak to myself. I think that was a big realization for me. How do you, like, it's a fine line. Like, how do you balance between that for yourself?
I mean, how you just said it, that was perfectly, well said. That negative self-talk, honestly, I don't have that for myself anymore. Probably for the past, like, maybe like a year and a half, I haven't had that negative self-talk. But it also probably because I don't worry about anything. I don't stress about anything because there's no point. There's no point, honestly. Like, most of the time when you have a problem, if you stress about it and you consistently think about it, then you get more of it, right? So, like you said, when I make a mistake, I don't give myself that negative talk. I'm like, all right, well, you made a mistake. What do we do now? How is it going to get solved? And then I just jump into the solution real quick. So it doesn't give me the time to negative, self-talk myself.
Well, the good news for anyone who's still following along is that if you do figure this out, you do have that aha moment, you wake up and you start pursuing the life that you're capable of, it's not too late. You know, they say Colonel Sanders started KFC when he was 65 years old. It's a little trite. I don't know how true it is either. But to your point, you know, you accomplished in 1 year more than you did in all of your 20s. And I think if you reflect back into your adolescence, there are probably lots of examples of that where you had like a month to write a paper and it ended up getting written in about 2 hours before the deadline.
Right. That's perfect.
So, Jhonny, today I went into our podcast kind of expecting to talk more about eBay and the mechanics of flipping. And, you know, frankly, that content is out there. But instead, I think what we discussed instead was a beautiful journey into the mindset of an entrepreneur and a content creator. And I think our audience is going to get a lot out of it.
Yeah. I was about to say the same thing. I was like, man, we didn't dive into eBay, but I feel like this is more important than the eBay talk. I'm sure if they go through your videos on YouTube, they'll find other podcasts where they can find how to start flipping things on eBay or how to flip in a marketplace. But yeah, these conversations are very important. They're more important than the how-tos on how to flip something or how to start your own business or how to even just go to your 9-to-5 job and not feel, depressed.
Absolutely. Well, to what you were saying earlier, everything has a reason. Everything has a purpose, right? So for the person who needs something tactical, the eBay videos are going to help. The house flipping, like the in the details videos are going to help. But I'm sure this podcast is going to speak to people as well, catching them at maybe a different part of their journey.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like anybody who is in the journey of being an entrepreneur and doing their, whether it's a flipping business or doing any kind of business, it does get lonely. And what we talked about is probably something they're going through right now. They've felt in the past, so they're going to be able to relate. But, just know you're not alone. You're not alone. And anybody who's trying to be, greater than most people around them is going to feel lonely. And I don't say greater as in like, you're going to be better than them. You're going to be better for yourself as in, grow financially. You just don't want to, have that quote unquote normal life.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Jhonny, thank you so much for coming on the pod. This was an amazing discussion on opportunity, mindset, finding yourself. And for those of you still listening along, if you're one of those people, you want an opportunity, you're willing to work hard, come see what we have to offer at Ivy Flip. We have a community of flippers just like you who want to create a better life for themselves and their family. We give them the inventory they need, the information, the tactics, the community, and the technology, all necessary to take your hustle to that next level. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it.